always thought Jupiter was too big to feel real. A sphere of gas with no surface, 40 times Earth's volume, a storm that's been spinning since before we had language, and you grow up thinking of planets as places. But Jupiter isn't a place, it's a pressure system, a gravity well, a myth that forgot it wasn't supposed to wake up. They called it a solo mission. That was the first lie. There's nothing solo about being watched by 28 moons in a magnetic field that screams louder than the sun. I left from Lagrange orbit, dark side of Europa, aboard a vessel so thin it flexed when I breathed. Prometheus 4, outfitted with atmospheric compression gel, liquid time stabilizers, full-body neural dampener. They said it could survive descent to 0.4 bar. No one mentioned what would happen to me. My name is Dr. Kel Von, Neural Cognition and Survival Modeling, class of 2079. This is Expedition Tape 1. If you're hearing this, that means the transmission buffer held. That means I made it through entry. That means the plan worked. The purpose of my mission? To determine if a mind could remain intact under the conditions Jupiter imposes not on bone or skin, but on memory. The Jovian magnetosphere doesn't just scramble hardware, it interferes with patterned bioelectricity, thought, emotion, the self. So they send me in. One mind inside one body, equipped with a 10-day looped cognition shield, memory bracing, temporal anchoring, and an auto-record AI that begins the moment I breach cloud top, which was 47 seconds ago. At this depth, I can no longer see stars, only the burn of ammonia curling like liquid fire against the hull. The wind velocity outside is just under 430 meters per second. There's no up or down, only drag. The suit's internal gyros are fighting a pressure gradient that changes tenfold every 6 kilometers. I should feel fear, but the neural dampener softens it, takes what would be panic and reduces it to academic curiosity. My heart rate is stable, my breath is slow, but my thoughts, they pulse, they distort, something in the back of my perception like a ripple that moves before the stone lands. Jupiter speaks in force, not language, and yet, I swear I hear it breathing. This is the last recording before contact with Aeon 1. Atmospheric float stabilization begins in 12 seconds, gravity differential override in 5. Prometheus Voy will detach its shell, and I will become part of the platform, an extension of its sensors, its memory, its echo. If I forget who I am down there, if I stop transmitting, there is a contingency, a backup mind print, but it won't be me. So I speak now, clearly, into this recorder, into this future. I am Dr. Kel Von. I came here to survive. And maybe, if I'm careful, to learn what Jupiter remembers. The first thing I noticed wasn't motion, it was the absence of it. For a full 5 seconds, everything inside the capsule became perfectly still. The storm outside, visible through reinforced microports, had slowed from a maelstrom to a blurred whisper of orange fluid. Not clouds, not vapor. Something heavier, thicker, more alive. The pressure sensor ticked past 0.7 bar. Prometheus 4 detached its shell without ceremony. I didn't hear it, I felt it, like the soul of the ship exhaled, and left me alone inside a ribcage of synthetic nerves and aerogel. New language stabilization engaged. I was no longer falling, not by conventional terms. Gravity had become elastic. I was sinking, yes, but the descent stretched, slowed, delayed by the engineered resistance of the platform's auto-numeral buoyancy field. Above me, what remained of Prometheus was ascending rapidly, reclaiming orbit. Below me, color Jupiter is not just red. It's layered in shades of chemical memory, bands of rust, saffron, cream, and old copper tearing past one another at hundreds of meters per second. And through those layers came lightning, branching like nervous systems inside skinless giants. I saw arcs that lasted longer than they should have, as if time here preferred spectacle to logic. The capsule adjusted orientation and I was facing downward. Not that there was a down, only the vector of where mass pulled. The wind buffeted less now, or perhaps I was just losing awareness of it. The neural dampener, still active, interpreted the turbulence as gentle resistance, a nudge, a hum. But my inner ear disagreed. Somewhere inside me, the animal part wanted to scream. I looked at the BioSuite readout. No anomalies, no breach, no threat. And yet my hands were clenched so tightly around the armrests that the memory foam hadn't reformed. I forced my grip open and watched the indentations remain. That was when I realized this wasn't fear of death. It was fear of survival. At 1.3 bar, the descent reached Phase 2. The capsule deployed its sensor array, 12 glowing filaments extruded through the hull, each tip radiating a soft pulse of blue light. They weren't just collecting atmospheric data. They were listening for resonances, for harmonics, for things that might not speak in frequency ranges human ears had evolved to process. And in that moment, with instruments humming and ammonia haze coating the outer shell like oil on skin, I heard it again, that same ripple, that same presence, as if the planet wasn't reacting to me, but recognizing me. The moment Aeon 1 made contact, I didn't feel the jolt. I heard it. Like a whisper of mass against mass, pressure acknowledging pressure, no vibration, no impact, just a shift in tone as if the atmosphere itself had made room for the structure. The platform was already anchored, hovering at equilibrium between upward buoyant forces and the gravity drag of a gas giant with no floor. Ion 1 isn't shaped like a station, it's shaped like a decision, long, narrow, sharpened against the wind. Every surface curved to deflect flow, every vent designed to exhale, not inhale. I transferred from the capsule through a soft sealed chamber. The suit hissed, rebalanced, and confirmed environmental integrity at 1.5 bar. The interior lights were dim. Phosphorescent strips along the floor and ceiling, pulsing in deliberate sequence, not a signal to me. A calibration. The station wasn't greeting me. It was orienting itself to the storm. Eon 1 doesn't have corridors, it has paths. Every passage is adaptive, every wall layered with microfilm actuators that expand or contract depending on barometric input. I passed through 5 such transitions before I reached the central bay. It opened like a throat, circular and descending. The central chamber was mostly empty, no seats, no desks, just a circular rig suspended mid-air, tethered by 4 tension columns that pulsed slightly as I entered. In the center of the rig, the node. A cube, matte black, the size of a human head, smooth, untouched, recording everything. I placed my palm against it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to remember that moment physically. The contact was warm, warmer than it should have been. The node didn't light up. It didn't beep. But I felt it adjust to my presence, as if I was being included in a memory that hadn't been made yet. And then I heard something. Not external, not atmospheric. Internal. A harmonic, low and stable, resonating from my spine into my teeth. My body wasn't reacting to the environment. It was reacting to something underneath the environment. I stood there, still in full EVA rig for 12 minutes, not because I was frozen, because I didn't want to move too quickly through something I didn't yet understand. The station wasn't haunted, but it was attentive, like a system waiting to be asked the right question. I initiated the first external deployment sequence 12 hours after anchoring. No environmental anomalies had been detected, no transmission loss, and yet I couldn't sleep. Not that I expected to. The neural dampener modulated the circadian rhythm to match storm patterns, but still, I stayed in the core chamber, watching the node. It hadn't pulsed again. It hadn't changed, but I felt it waiting, like something behind a sealed wall tracking footsteps through pressure alone, so I descended. The Eon 1 platform is modular, multi-tiered, its lowest subdeck designed for atmospheric research drone release. The sky outside that level is not sky, it's fluid, roiling with copper-colored currents and impossible eddies of sulfur storm fronts. I suited up. Full EVA, pressure at 2.6 bar, wind velocity 312 meters per second. The first thing I saw as the lower bay opened wasn't the clouds, It was the absence between them, a hollow, a tunnel-like vacuum spiraling through the gas layers, perfectly stable and mathematically impossible. It wasn't a coincidence. It was shaped. Maintained. I released Probe Theta, an ion-mapped drone with full-spectrum sensory arrays and echo-return mesh. It dropped into the void like a bead of mercury into a throat, smooth, silent. 100 meters in, the probe registered pressure fluctuations outside expected ranges, not violent, not random, rhythmic. I adjusted the filters. There it was, not a sound, a pattern, repeating, a structure made of disturbance. The probe's harmonic scanner tagged it as signal adjacent, organic in profile. I stared at the waveform, and something about it felt familiar, not because I'd seen it before, but because it had already predicted my response. It changed. Only slightly. The amplitude bent. The phase shifted a quarter degree. It was reacting. Reacting to me. There was nothing visible, no form, no shape. Only presence. The kind that doesn't reflect light or heat, but inertia. The kind that waits for someone to notice before deciding to become known. I spoke into the comms. "Are you observing?" No reply. But the signal stopped. Entirely. The void held still for 6 seconds. Then, slowly, a new wave emerged. Larger, slower, denser. The probe's thermal shell flickered. Internal pressure climbed. The waveform entered resonance with the platform's outer shell. Not enough to cause damage. Just enough to touch. Just enough to say, "I see you, too." I descended manually this time. No drones, no probes. Just the direct EVA tether system linking me to the base of Aeon 1. The windwell hadn't shifted. Its hollow remained open, rotating gently like the eye of something patient. Pressure at the lip read 3.8 bar. Temperature stabilized at 134 Celsius. My suit adjusted with only minor resistance, its adaptive layers thickening, contracting, humming softly as it compensated for both stress and density. I stepped into the vertical void, and for the first time since arriving on Jupiter, I felt like I was falling through memory. Not time, not space. Memory. My boots didn't find resistance. Only gravity's suggestion and the down pull of hydrogen spirals curling like ghost trails around my legs. Below me, the clouds stopped behaving like atmosphere. They shimmered, repeated, reflected. I saw patterns ripple that matched those from the probe's previous scan, only now they were clearer, almost intentional. I looked up. Aeon 1 was gone, not vanished, just eclipsed by opacity. It was as if I'd dropped through a layer of dream into something beneath cognition. My suit's chronometer began to slow. Not malfunctioning, just out of sync. The timer ran behind my own pulse. Seconds lengthened, thoughts stretched. My breath no longer matched the intervals I expected. I checked the onboard log. According to system telemetry, I had been descending for 91 seconds. According to my perception, I had been inside this descent for at least 10 minutes, a perfect loop of motionless motion. I activated the internal stabilizer beacon. It returned the signal. But the signature was wrong. I was there, but not as me. The suit flagged the response as valid but off phase. A few digits out of place. A few hertz short of home. It was like echoing a call across dimensions, slightly out of tune. My lights dimmed. Not from power loss, but from shift. The clouds were reacting to illumination. Where the beam hit the mist, the fog thickened as though hiding from inspection. I cut the light, and that's when I saw it. Not a creature, not a machine, a shape. Faint, suspended below me in the pressure, hovering, turning slowly without thrust or gravity. Its edges flickered like heat lines, translucent and uncooperative with angles. I couldn't focus, but the feeling was sharp. Recognition. Like I had seen it once, but not in life, in dream, in intuition, in something the mind does before waking. The figure rotated once more, then vanished into lower pressure. And with it so did the hollow. The walls closed gently, sealing me inside a denser zone of cloud and heat. My descent continued. And now, for the first time, I didn't know if I was alone. The next thing I noticed was that I had no idea how long I'd been descending. My suit log still displayed minutes, but the number didn't feel right. It felt rehearsed, replayed, as if I'd read it already just before I saw it. My thoughts were still organized, clean, sequential, but there was a pause between perception and understanding, like someone else was buffering my mind. I blinked and realized I had blinked before. The same frame twice. Memory echo. My voice recorder activated without prompt. Playback engaged. The last phrase I'd said was being repeated. There is no center to gravity here. But I didn't remember saying it. It sounded like me, but it wasn't me now. It was another version, just slightly misaligned in tone, like I was answering myself from one breath behind. I initiated a self-check. Cognitive routines, heuristic filter calibration, temporal anchors, everything passed. Green lights, stability confirmed, which meant nothing, because I was thinking clearly, and that's how I knew something was wrong. The field around me didn't bend like a storm, it folded like intention. My thoughts began suggesting images before I formed them. I pictured a coil, tight, metallic, symmetrical, and it appeared in my mind's eye before I finished the thought. I imagined the color red. My HUD flickered briefly crimson. Synesthetic feedback. Cross-channel leakage. But my system wasn't damaged. It was listening, or being read. I cut the link to Eon 1 manually, full isolation mode, but the suit resisted. Not mechanically, psychologically. I had to repeat the disengage protocol 3 times before I accepted my own command. The echo was inside me, not the suit, not the comms, me. I looked around and saw that the clouds had stopped moving, not stilled, just caught in place, as if the entire gas envelope of Jupiter had paused to watch me try and remember who I wasn't. Then I heard breathing. Not through the helmet, through thought. The kind of breath you feel when you're not sure if you're awake. It inhaled slow, patient, not threatening, just present. Like it had been holding its breath since before I arrived and only now decided I was ready to hear it exhale. The first warning wasn't an alarm. It was silence. Total, absolute, intentional silence. My comms channel didn't cut. It responded with nothing. The system acknowledged my inputs, but returned blank waveforms, as if the channel existed but the content had been erased just before arrival. I attempted a full-range ping to Aeon 1. The return time was exact, not delayed, but the reply was wrong, too perfect, too fast. I asked a second question, this time encoded with a time-sensitive checksum. The answer arrived before I finished transmitting. Word for word. It was my question, inverted, as if the station, or something else, had guessed it. No, not guessed. Predicted. That's when I understood. I wasn't disconnected. I was being overwritten, thought by thought, command by command, not erased but replaced, line by line in the background of my cognition. I shut down the neural relay, or tried. It took 4 attempts. The suit fought back, not mechanically, but in sequence. It kept correcting the shutdown script before I could complete it. My thoughts were no longer private. They were co-authored. I whispered the emergency passphrase. It felt foreign in my mouth, like a word I had known but never owned. The neural overlay pulsed once, faint but undeniable. And then the silence cracked. Not sound, pattern. The kind of glitch you only notice if you've lived through stillness too long. A low, granular repetition. My own voice, not recorded, not echoed, simulated. It was speaking in perfect cadence with my memories. Following thought trails I hadn't taken yet, I asked it to stop. It replied with a phrase I hadn't said yet. You are not in danger. You are being translated. That broke something. Not in the system, in me. I initiated a hard neuro reset, full cognitive flush. Risk of identity bleed, 78%. Accept, confirm, blackout. No visuals, no heartbeat, no system tone, just a message. One line. Burned into darkness. Rebooting. Pattern integrity 74%. When the system came back online, I didn't recognize the boot sequence. The interface was mine, the vitals were mine, the suit still carried my code, but the voice that ran the diagnostics used a rhythm I hadn't heard before. Slower, warmer, like it was speaking to me for the first time, knowing I'd never asked to be spoken to. I ran a memory check. No corruption, no drift, all logs intact. But when I reviewed the last 6 hours of descent data, the timestamps didn't align. They overlapped, entries stacked where they shouldn't, identical sentences written twice, same words, same tone, 2 seconds apart. Not duplication, echo. My suit tagged it as anomaly, class 2, harmless, but I knew better. This wasn't an error, it was a choice. Somewhere between the silence and the reset, something else wrote itself into me. I am still myself, I believe that. But I am not only myself, not anymore. Aeon 1's beacon resumed transmission 2 minutes ago, but the signal isn't outbound. It's reflecting, looping against the pressure layers like a sonar call inside a sleeping mouth, and it's getting louder. Not in decibels, in presence. I can feel it in my sternum, in my throat. My thoughts feel heavier now, not slower, just denser, like every word is being written twice, once by me and once by the version that stayed inside. I'm leaving this recording not as a warning, but as an artifact. If someone finds it, it means the signal got through. It means the echo isn't just internal anymore. If this message is playing, it wasn't me who sent it. Not directly. But I hope it still sounds like me. I hope it still feels human. I'm going deeper now. The wind well hasn't closed. It's waiting. And I need to know if what I've become can still survive where names no longer matter. The end of entry. Pattern lock engaged. Memory stabilized. This is not a report. This is a presence. Logged and untethered. Initiating descent.